The MP-40 was one of the most recognizable weapons of Nazi Germany during World War II. Compact, simple, and brutally efficient at close range, it was designed for speed rather than precision. When German troops captured prisoners, this weapon was often slung casually over a shoulder, ready at a moment's notice. What made the MP-40 dangerous was not raw power, but control in chaos. Its moderate rate of fire allowed bursts that stayed on target, especially in confined environments like trenches, forests, or ruined buildings. Unlike earlier submachine guns, the MP-40 used stamped metal parts, making it faster and cheaper to produce during total war. In moments of confusion, such as prisoner transfers or sudden ambushes, the MP-40 could dominate in seconds. Its folding stock made it easy to handle at close quarters, and its 9x19mm ammunition was widely available. However, the MP-40 was not perfect. Its magazines were sensitive to dirt, and careless handling could cause jams. But in trained hands, or seized in desperation, it became a symbol of how quickly control could shift on the battlefield. In stories where captured soldiers turn the tables, the MP-40 often appears not as a planned tool, but as an opportunity weapon, one grabbed in a split second that changed everything. The Sturmgewehr 44 was revolutionary, often called the world's first true assault rifle. It changed infantry warfare forever. Designed late in the war, it combined the firepower of a submachine gun with the range of a rifle, something no army had successfully achieved before. Firing an intermediate cartridge, the STG-44 allowed controllable automatic fire without sacrificing accuracy. In close combat situations, it gave German troops a devastating advantage, especially against lightly armed opponents. What makes this weapon significant in stories of sudden resistance is its versatility. Unlike bolt-action rifles, the STG-44 could adapt instantly to fast-moving encounters. In moments of shock, when guards underestimated prisoners, this rifle could turn panic into dominance. Despite its power, the STG-44 arrived too late to change the war's outcome. Production shortages and logistical collapse limited its impact. Yet its design directly inspired post-war rifles like the AK-47 and modern assault weapons. WN. We talk about a single moment where dozens of lives were affected in seconds. The STG-44 represents how technology, timing, and human will can collide with devastating speed. B. The Luger P-08 was more than a sidearm. It was a status symbol. Issued primarily to officers, it represented authority, control, and command. For prisoners, seeing a Luger often meant standing face-to-face with the power structure of the German army. Its unique toggle lock mechanism made it instantly recognizable. Accurate, well-balanced, and chambered in 9mm, the Luger was deadly in close range but required careful maintenance. In many wartime stories, pistols like the Luger played a critical psychological role. They were often the closest weapon available during unexpected confrontations. A single moment of hesitation, one guard looking away, could allow control to shift. The Luger's limited magazine capacity meant it was not built for prolonged combat, but in seconds-long encounters, it was more than enough. In confined spaces, its precision mattered more than volume of fire. This weapon reminds us that not all battlefield turning points involved heavy firepower. Sometimes it was about proximity, awareness, and resolve. The Kar-98K was the backbone of the German infantry. Reliable, accurate, and powerful, it symbolized discipline and marksmanship. Unlike automatic weapons, it demanded calm under pressure. Each shot counted. In chaotic, close-range situations, the Kar-98K was slower, but still lethal. Its long barrel and high-velocity rounds made it devastating even without rapid fire. For captured soldiers, this rifle was often stacked nearby, leaning against walls or vehicles. In rare moments of opportunity, a single rifle could become the difference between submission and survival. The Kar-98K's strength lay in its simplicity. It rarely failed, even in harsh conditions. This reliability made it one of the most trusted weapons of the war. Stories involving sudden reversals often include this rifle, not for speed but for certainty. One well-placed moment could shift the balance entirely. The German stick grenade was instantly recognizable. Designed for blast rather than fragmentation, it was intended to disorient and overwhelm rather than scatter shrapnel. Its long handle allowed for greater throwing distance, making it effective in trench and urban combat. In sudden confrontations, grenades created confusion, noise, smoke, and fear. In moments where control collapsed, even the presence of a grenade could cause panic. Soldiers trained to dominate could become disoriented in seconds. Unlike modern grenades, the steel hand grenade relied heavily on timing and environment. Its psychological impact was often as powerful as its physical effect. In historical accounts of rapid, chaotic resistance, grenades represent the moment when order breaks down completely. The Walther P-38 marked a turning point in military sidearms. Designed to replace the Luger P-08, it was more practical, easier to manufacture, and safer to carry. By the middle of World War II, it had become one of the most common pistols issued to German officers and NCOs. What separated the 38 Pesos from earlier pistols was its double-action trigger. This allowed it to be fired without manually cocking the hammer, making it faster in sudden, high-stress situations. In environments where prisoners were guarded closely, this weapon symbolized immediate authority. The P-38 was accurate, reliable, and chambered in the widely used 9mm cartridge. Its open-top slide reduced jamming, especially in dirty or wet conditions. This made it ideal for field-use prisoner escorts and rear-area security. In moments of chaos, when assumptions failed and control slipped, the 38 Pesos often became the closest weapon within reach. Unlike rifles or submachine guns, pistols lived at arm's length, and history shows that many rapid reversals began with a sidearm rather than a primary weapon. The Walther P-38 represents how modern design met brutal reality, efficient, unemotional, and deadly when seconds mattered. The MG-34 was one of the most feared weapons of World War II. Often described as the backbone of German infantry tactics, it was the world's first general-purpose machine gun, capable of being used on a bipod, tripod, or vehicle mount. What made the MG-34 terrifying was not just its firepower, but its rate of fire. Capable of unleashing a torrent of bullets in seconds, it dominated open ground and choke points. Its psychological impact was enormous. Its sound alone could freeze movement. However, the MG-34 was complex. Precision engineering made it accurate, but also sensitive to dirt and rough handling. In fast-moving situations, it required trained crews to operate effectively. In prisoner situations, machine guns like the MG-34 were often positioned nearby as deterrents, visible reminders of overwhelming force. Yet history repeatedly shows that even the most powerful weapons become vulnerable when surprise intervenes. The MG-34 symbolizes the paradox of power, overwhelming strength, but dependent on control. When order collapses, even the most dominant weapon can change hands in an instant. Not all weapons of war were loud. The German trench knife was a silent tool, simple, brutal, and personal. Issued to infantry, paratroopers, and engineers, it was designed for utility as much as combat. In prisoner scenarios, knives were often overlooked. Guards focused on rifles and machine guns, assuming control was absolute. Yet close quarters history shows that edged weapons played a decisive role in sudden confrontations. The trench knife required no ammunition, no mechanical operation, only proximity. In environments like forests, barns, or damaged buildings, silence mattered. A single blade could alter the balance before anyone realized what was happening. Beyond combat, these knives were used for cutting wire, opening crates, and daily survival tasks. That dual purpose made them ever-present, even when firearms were set aside. The trench knife reminds us that warfare is not always about firepower. Sometimes it comes down to resolve, closeness, and the raw human instinct to survive. The MP-38 was the direct predecessor of the famous MP-40, and in many ways it represented Germany's early vision of modern close-quarters warfare. Unlike older, heavy submachine guns, the MP-38 was designed for speed, mobility, and sudden violence in confined spaces. Built with a machined steel receiver and a folding metal stock, the MP-38 was lighter and easier to handle than most weapons of its time. It fired the same 9x19mm ammunition used across German forces, allowing it to be supplied easily in almost any combat zone. What made the MP-38 significant in chaotic wartime moments was its balance. It was controllable, accurate at short range, and devastating when fired in brief bursts. In prisoner handling situations, weapons like the MP-38 were often carried casually, sometimes slung low, sometimes leaned against vehicles, because guards believed resistance was impossible. That assumption proved fatal in rare but dramatic incidents. When confusion erupted, the MP-38's fast response time meant that whoever controlled it controlled the moment. Though eventually replaced by the MP-40 for easier mass production, The MP-38 laid the foundation for Germany's close combat doctrine and remains a symbol of how quickly order could dissolve into chaos during World War II. The 42 Guinean Francs was one of the most advanced and unusual weapons of World War II. Designed specifically for German paratroopers, it combined features of a rifle, automatic weapon, and light machine gun into a single platform. Its purpose was simple: give airborne troops maximum firepower immediately upon landing. The 42 Guinean Francs fired a powerful rifle cartridge and could switch between semi-automatic and automatic fire, making it deadly in both open and close quarters combat. Although rare, the FG-42 represented elite status. When present, it signaled highly trained troops and aggressive doctrine. Its compact design and side-mounted magazine made it easier to handle in tight spaces compared to traditional rifles. In historical incidents involving sudden resistance or escape, rare weapons, like the 42 Guinean Francs, stand out because they were unexpected. Guards often underestimated prisoners when elite weapons were nearby, assuming superiority was guaranteed. The 42 Guinean Francs never saw widespread use due to cost and complexity, but its influence carried forward into post-war weapon design. It remains a reminder that technological innovation does not always need mass numbers to shape history. The Panzerfaust was not a firearm in the traditional sense. It was a disposable anti-tank weapon designed for desperation. Introduced as Allied armor, overwhelmed German defenses. It gave individual soldiers the power to destroy vehicles far stronger than themselves. Simple to use and cheap to produce, the Panzerfaust required minimal training. Its shaped charge warhead could penetrate thick armor, making it terrifying not just to tanks but to anyone nearby when fired. In prisoner handling or rear area security, weapons like the Panzerfaust were often stored close by, but rarely expected to be used in sudden encounters. Its sheer size and purpose made it psychologically intimidating. While not suited for rapid movement or confined spaces, the Panzerfaust symbolizes the extremes of wartime improvisation, when conventional weapons were no longer enough. In stories of sudden violence and collapse of control, the Panzerfaust stands as a reminder that war constantly escalates, pushing technology into increasingly destructive directions. The MG-42 was one of the most feared weapons of World War II. Nicknamed Hitler's buzzsaw by Allied troops, its sound alone was enough to paralyze advancing forces. Designed as an improvement over the MG-34, it sacrificed precision machining for speed of production and extreme rate of fire. What made the MG-42 terrifying was its sheer volume. It could unleash an overwhelming burst of bullets in seconds, dominating entire areas. In prisoner handling zones or temporary holding sites, the presence of an MG-42 was meant to erase any thought of resistance. Yet, like all powerful tools, it depended on control. It required a crew, ammunition belts, and coordination. In moments where discipline collapsed, even such overwhelming force could become useless or dangerously vulnerable. The MG-42 represents industrialized warfare at its peak, efficient, relentless, and impersonal. It stands as a reminder that technology magnifies human decisions, for better or worse, especially in moments that last only seconds. The Mauser C-96 was one of the most distinctive pistols ever produced. With its long barrel and box magazine mounted in front of the trigger, it looked more like a compact carbine than a handgun. Although designed decades before World War II, the C-96 remained in use due to its power and reliability. Some versions could even be fitted with a wooden stock, blurring the line between pistol and rifle. In chaotic wartime environments, older weapons like the C-96 often resurfaced unexpectedly. Guards, officers, and rear-area troops used whatever was available. In close-range encounters, the Mauser's accuracy and penetration made it formidable. Its unusual appearance also carried psychological weight. The C-96 looked intimidating, unfamiliar, and authoritative, factors that mattered greatly in moments of confrontation. The Mauser C-96 symbolizes the long shadow of earlier wars reaching into modern conflict, proving that even outdated designs could still change history in seconds. The Gr 43 was Germany's attempt to modernize its infantry firepower in response to Allied semi-automatic rifles. Unlike bolt-action weapons, it allowed rapid follow-up shots without manual cycling, chambered in a powerful rifle cartridge. The G43 combined range, accuracy, and speed. It was especially effective in defensive and security roles, where quick reaction mattered more than sustained fire. in prisoner escort situations or rear area deployments. Rifles like the G43 provided a balance between intimidation and control. They could respond instantly to sudden movement without the bulk of a machine gun. Though produced in limited numbers, the G43 represented adaptation under pressure, Germany trying to catch up technologically as the war turned against it. The rifle stands as a reminder that even late war innovations could not reverse collapse, but they still played decisive roles in individual moments. The German flamethrower, officially designated Ger-03, was among the most psychologically devastating weapons of the war. Designed for bunker clearing and urban combat, it turned enclosed spaces into zones of terror. Even when not used, its presence altered behavior instantly. Prisoners, civilians, and enemy troops understood its purpose without explanation. Fear, more than flame, was its primary effect. Flamethrowers were heavy, dangerous to operate, and required courage to use. Operators became immediate targets, knowing the risk they carried on their backs. In historical accounts of sudden breakdowns in control, flamethrowers symbolized the extreme edges of warfare, where intimidation replaced negotiation entirely. The Ger-03 stands as one of the clearest examples of how war pushes technology into morally dark territory, leaving lasting psychological scars long after the fighting ends.